Greetings, everybody, and welcome to my YouTube channel, All That Is. I'm so pleased to welcome a special guest today, Robert McLean, on the show today. But before I go into a detailed background about Robert, I just wanted to say hi, Robert, and welcome to the show.
Hey, it's great to be here, Raquel. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Well, Robert agreed to be on the show because I was trying to speak to somebody about just the divine masculine and, how it is we are encountering that energy, if you will, in our day and age. And so Robert agreed to do this interview with me, and I'm so pleased to be able to do this. We are actually sitting across from each other in Vancouver. So this is awesome that I get to actually meet Robert as well in person. And so Robert, as a background, is a shaman, and he has, since his youth, had the ability to communicate with nature, the natural world, the spirit realm. And so he's had that inner connection with the higher power and receives guidance from his ancestors, who are Scottish, Irish, and Celtic. And we'll talk about that in a little while. Robert, in his 20s, took many courses and formally trained in Reiki, shamanism, and angelic communication, to name a few. Again, we'll go into all of that in detail as we get to chat here with Robert in a little while. And through these techniques, such as shamanic journeying and spirit travel, Robert has trained to transcend boundaries and become consciously aware of other worlds on an interdimensional level, to gain insight, knowledge, and empowerment to perform various healing modalities. Robert brings gentleness, warmth, compassion, and understanding to his shamanic practice that encapsulates stewarding and protecting Mother Earth, the animal kingdom, the plant kingdom, and humans, of course. And through these various healing modalities, which we will talk about, he has arrived at this point in his life. And so we'll get to talk to him about all of these beautiful things that he has done in his life to arrive at this point in his journey. So welcome, Robert, once again to the show. It's truly such a pleasure to be here with you as a guest on my show. Whether it's circumstance or by design, all of my guests have been women on the show. And so it's truly refreshing and a treat for me to interview somebody within that male aspect and within that masculine energy, if you will. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you again. It's really an honor to be here with you. And, right off the jump, you start out on a really important fact of information that it's usually the women that are carrying this and the spirituality and the awareness and the willingness to go into these places. The masculine has been really under fire. They've had to fight in wars. They've had to carry everything on their shoulders, and they've really been bogged down by the 3D world. So it's been hard for a lot of them to open up into this space. But I connect with so many brothers who are opening up and wanna do it and wanna embrace their own spirituality and get connected to nature and get connected to spirit. So the desire is there, and I think we're going to start to see shifts in that soon. But the ladies have been leading the way, that's for sure. So we got to give all of you your recognition and honor you for that, for keeping those pathways open.
Awesome. Thank you. Yes, we will talk about that in depth. But let's go back a bit just to give everybody a little bit of background about where it is you come from and how it is you arrived at your spirituality, so to speak. I read through your bio, and it said that you were pretty aware of, let's say, interdimensional energies, or aware of yourself as an interdimensional being at a very young age. So just take us back to that time and just give us a bit of background on how it is you realize that this is your mission and this is who you are. And if there was, in a way, a polarity that you saw in yourself, within yourself and the outside world.
Yeah, that's well, let's try to begin as far back at the beginning as we can. So I remember seeing um, light body. I always called it the light body. So it's the emanations of energy and colors coming from people when I was quite young. I didn't always understand what it meant at the time. In fact, most of the time I didn't. But sometimes I would get clues as to what the images and what the visions meant for people. And when I did share my thoughts with the adult world around me, it was usually confirmed to be pretty accurate. So um, it was confusing. I didn't understand it as a really young child. I didn't understand why most adults couldn't comprehend what I was sharing. Um, on a lucky strike, every every third generation of my family has had a seer in the family, someone who had the gift of sight in some capacity. So prior to me, it was my great grandmother, who I'd never met, passed away before I came onto this plane. And her children, my grandfather and my great aunt, started sharing with me stories once they realized what was happening to me. So they told me, don't worry. This is part of the family lineage, and you just have to trust it, and you have to work with it and figure it out. But it is real, and you're not crazy. But it will be a journey to learn how to trust what you see, and how to navigate the world within that. So that was 40 or more years ago. So, and the world is always evolving and changing. So at that time, it was pretty tough to be a kid that would see these things and share these things. I'm amazed with how the world is changing now. Uh, I was in a crystal store the other day, and the kids are picking up crystals, saying, "Oh, this one gets rid of headaches, and this one stops the EMF frequencies from Wi-Fi and TVs." So the kids today are really getting to step into a pretty amazing space where all that stuff is really encouraged and accepted. Um, so it's awesome. So I came in a little bit before it was like that, but it's pretty amazing to see how things are shifting with every generation. So, and I had instances with animals when I was very young. Um, I had encounters with prairie animals. I grew up out on the prairie, the Alberta prairie. So I would have encounters with badgers, and I could hear them talk. When I was young enough, they would speak just like humans would. Um, I've had some pretty incredible encounters with red-tailed hawks. That's been um, that's been part of my life for a long time. I used to whistle at them, and they'd follow me across the prairies. So we had different sections. My parents had a farm, my grandparents had a ranch, and then we had little areas in between where they'd harvest hay. And my grandpa would say, I always know where you are on the prairies because you always have like two or three hawks that just circle you all the time. And sure enough, anytime I go to where the hawks are circling, that's where you are. So I was always pretty close to those hawks. And
So you couldn't really hide from them, hey?
no, no. But it was easy to be accepting of all that stuff. It was it, the nearest town was almost half an hour drive away. So it was a pretty isolated place. Um, Not a lot of neighbors. I think the nearest neighbor would have been about a mile and a half away. So it's quiet out there. There's more animals than people. So I loved going for walks across the prairie and just connecting with whatever I could. Um, Porcupines. Had some encounters with bees. Some pretty interesting stuff. Um, and it's always pretty synchronistic with what's going on.
So, what was the extent of your conversations or your interactions with these animals?
You know, it wasn't so much like they were sharing the secrets of the universe with me. It was more like just connecting with friends and neighbors. Um, I don't know how old I would have been. Very young, like I would guess around 5, give or take a year or two. And I climbed into a badger tunnel, and I remember crawling through the tunnels, and I came across some badger pups, and I ended up laying down with them, and I fell asleep. I fell completely asleep, and the mother woke me up. I felt her snout kind of rubbing on my forehead, and when I woke up, um, she just asked me what I was doing in the tunnel, and I heard her voice as clearly as you and I talked. And I just said, I'm just really tired, and this looked like a nice place to sleep. So she didn't bother me, didn't attack me, didn't growl at me. Um, I don't know how much longer I stayed in there, but eventually I wasn't tired anymore, so I crawled out. And so encounters like that. Um,
Wow, that's amazing. So, did
yeah.
you see the animal world as a different layer from the human world? Like, was there a distinguishing factor between the two?
You know, it wasn't like the way I see people's light bodies, which is just the aura and the chakra system. Um, I always refer to it as light body because I was quite late in life when I encountered the chakra system and the aura. I didn't even hear those terms till I was about 19 or 20. So for me, I just referred to it as the light body. Now, when I witnessed that, that is very other dimensionally. Like I'm never confused as to if images I see in someone's light body are part of the physical 3D world. I'm always very aware and conscious that that's something interdimensional or from another dimensional frequency. But with the animals, it was always part of the 3D plane.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that's awesome. So let's talk about the human light body. When did you start interacting with the human light body, and how did that come about in terms of you understanding that you were here in a way as a healer, or understanding that you were here on a mission, if you will? Like, how did you get that into your understanding, into your I suppose as you matured, right? Like from a young person to then moving to that stage of understanding the light body and saying, okay, I'm very different from everybody else, this is how I see things. So, how did you progress through that transition, if you will, to understand that you were in that role?
Well, I do remember an incident with an aunt. This is still in childhood, but I remember seeing like a lot of fire around her solar plexus, and I could see images of her husband who wasn't there at the time. And I remember asking her why she was mad at her husband, and then she wanted to know why do you think that? And I told her, I could see him in the fire around the base of your rib cage, and it looks like you've been mad at him for a long time, and he's sorry. Um, and then it kind of opened up this whole thing of she started talking, um, and they made up. Turns out they were having a fight, so that encouraged her to speak with him and initiate whatever conversation they had to have. So that incident always kind of stuck with me as I went into adulthood of how you can help people just by sharing the awareness and the visions that come. So I would guess when I was 20, in my early 20s, um, that was when I started. I heard about the aura, I heard about chakras, And as I heard other people talking about these things and I came across books about them, I realized, well, this is very similar to what I'm experiencing. So that led me to, I started studying angel communication, and I took different forms of Reiki. I studied Usui Reiki and Karuna Reiki, Lightarian Reiki, like quite a few Reiki streams. And I studied healing touch and therapeutic touch, and just trying to expose myself to as much of this stuff as possible. Starting to encounter other people that did this kind of stuff, which really gave me the permission to feel like I didn't have to suppress it or hide it, or that I couldn't share it. Because Central Alberta in the '90s and early 2000s, it's the oil patch, it's construction, it's chemical farming practices. It's not an Indian temple or a Nepalese monastery. So it was pretty hard to even share a sentence with most people, let alone have an open conversation. So, um, so this was kind of taking place in Calgary at the time, where I was meeting people and studying different things and all these courses. Um, I got my first singing bowl around that time too. I think around the age of 21, and that rocked my world. Um, Initially, in my first experiences using these bowls, like it just amplified everything. I could go into these trance states faster. Like I could see the light bodies and have these visions more vividly, with more detail, more structure, more information. So 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 that was huge. And then I don't know if I felt like a kid in a candy store or what the metaphor would be, but it just felt like there's this entire world of information and experience and knowledge, and I just wanted to experience it and understand myself better. And through those experiences, I started to have more realizations of how I could use my piece of the puzzle to help other people, which I think is what we're all trying to do. Just bring our own unique gifts to the table, um, and try to make this world a better place. So, um, a story I shared just a few days ago with some friends in the Vancouver area. So they were asking similar questions about, like, how did you know to start using your techniques and combine it with these singing bowls, and why that? Um, so and I feel like you can use any tool. It could be a rattle, it could be a drum, it could be your voice, it could be bells. You can use any tool that really feels right for whoever's doing it to access those dimensions. Um, for me, I just had such profound experience with the singing bowls that I felt like that was the one I really wanted to, the one I really resonated with the most. So, I was really fortunate to meet this Tibetan monk in just, right after the millennium, like just right after the 2001 era. And he saw me playing this bowl, and he said, "Oh, um, that's really nice. Those are helpful to calm your mind." And I thought, I want to tell him about these other experiences that I've had with this. So I shared everything. I shared about having instances with ghosts. I would encounter like a discarnate spirit and use the bowl to help them peacefully transition, and peacefully release whatever was holding them to staying in the physical world. And I told them about getting visions of the aura, the auric field, which I always call the light body, um, and getting information about past lives, and receiving information from spirit guides. And so I just babbled on about all this stuff. And then I finally kind of stopped because he was just staring so intently at me. And I said, I hope I'm not offending you, because I don't know what you use these things for. And he shared some remarkable stuff with me, because he said, there are absolutely stories and legends and systems of us using these things for all the things that you describe. Um, I don't know what it's like for them now, like if they can openly share a lot of this stuff, or if it's still, held quite sacredly. Um, but he said, typically we don't really talk about that stuff. We just say that they're meditation tools. But he said, you've come to this stuff totally naturally. So you should keep exploring it and keep doing it, um, because it's really important. And yeah, he was such the perfect person, the perfect person at the right place at the right time.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's such a beautiful story. So, do you feel that you tapped into this sort of other world, let's say the interdimensional world, through music or through the bowls, or was it like the process that you had right from childhood, and then you did all of the training? Like, was it a combination of everything that you fine tuned the gateway, let's say, to this other world to finally say, okay, this is how I'm going to access it? Like, how did you sort of like, I'm trying to understand how it is that you connect. So do you like go into meditative state to get into that aspect of your being, or is it like constant?
So, really quick answer is that it's everything that you just said. So, it was always there throughout my life. Um, I think studying these different systems and working with the bowls absolutely amplified that, and it gave me more structure and more clarity with how to approach it. And I prefer to have time to tune in and settle in. So, if I'm doing energy work in a space, I like to ease my way into it and really feel into it. If I'm reading for a person in an individual session, I like to really set the space, like clear the energy, and then create like a contained space where healing and openness can really be there. Because it's like anything else. If you were going to get a treatment from anybody, like you probably wouldn't want to sit in a busy parkade or a parking lot. Like you'd want to be somewhere like a nice treatment room or a grove of trees or somewhere by a body of water. Like you'd want somewhere that feels like you can relax and be at peace, to be open to receiving from someone who is going to give you a reading or a healing session. Um, so I very much agree with that. Set and setting is important. And I find that the information is clearer, if I'm in a good space like that, if I take the time to tune in, um, and it's better for the person receiving too. Um, as far as being on all the time, I think it is on, but I don't always put my attention there. So I can certainly like walk through a mall or a subway and just kind of keep contained, like in kind of a protective bubble or shell, so I'm not being bombarded with stuff. And then if I wanna turn it on, I can. So it's conscious. I'm trying to think of a comparison. Um, but I guess it's like anybody who does anything, like if you were an artist, you could walk through a river valley and you could say, I'm gonna stop here and do some art. I'll paint or I'll draw or whatever the case may be. Or you could decide, I'm just going to keep going. So I think it's similar to like,
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, awesome. Um, so would you say that you are sensitive with your entire being? Like, do you hear, do you see, do you feel, do you sense, do you know? Like, what is your sensitivity?
it's all of that. Um, I've worked over the years not to feel physically as much. Um, just because I found like feeling people's aches and pains or physical maladies. Um, uh, I just had to spend a lot of extra time clearing that from myself. Um, and that's not to suggest you don't, you still have to spend time clearing your mind, clearing your emotional field, cleansing your spiritual field. There's still cleansing and clearing and recentering involved, no matter what sense you're using. But I have found that I don't tune in physically as much now as I used to. Um, I still can and I still do, but I've just found I prefer not to do it that way, especially if I'm going to be doing a lot of sessions in a row or like several groups, so over a short period of days, just because I know um, I don't want to carry all that physical stuff around with me. Um, and because the physical is denser, it seems to take longer to clear. Because if you take on somebody's mental state, it seems like it clears a little quicker with meditation techniques and consciously working with your mind. It seems like that stuff clears a little quicker than the physical stuff, which you usually need to stretch or do self massage or get a treatment from somebody else. Um, yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, the physical world is really dense, right? And yeah, you're right. It does take a lot more, and things stick a lot more, when you're in that dense energy as well. So yeah, that totally makes sense. So just going back to your ancestors, you talked about having Scottish and Irish and Celtic ancestors. How is that sort of fed into what you have experienced here within this physical world and your connection, say, perhaps to your guides and I'm going to say higher self, but you can correct me if that's what you call that energy, because I call it the higher self or the oversoul energy. But yeah, just let me know what you sort of experience in terms of how you connect with those higher energies and how you term them as it reflects again as well to your ancestors.
Oh, that's interesting. I might have to reflect on that a little bit because um, when I connect to my ancestors, I tend to connect to them almost the same as the way you and I are connecting now. It's like I can ask them questions, they can ask me questions, and then we take it or leave it. We weigh the advice, and then I consider if it's valuable in that situation. So I have a lot of respect um, and honor towards my ancestors, um, but I also feel like I'm connecting with the individual essence of who they are too. And they have their own opinions and their own personality and their own approach to things. So, in the same way that if I was conversing with, other healers and energy workers, um, that's the same way I approach my guides. I realize we're all trying to help each other and guide each other and give each other advice. But I know that I have to make my own decisions and honor my own choices and ultimately take responsibility for the actions and the decisions that I make. I don't want to say, well, I did something because a guide told me to. Ultimately, I chose to listen. So I kind of want to circle back to what you said about the higher self and the oversoul. That's what I prefer to connect with the most. Because that's the source of all of that stuff, whether it's an ancestor or we work with the tarot or a pendulum or crystals, or we're getting psychic visions or we're feeling things in our body. I mean, it's all coming from source anyway. So I think recognizing that source, the source of everything, is where all these other things are coming from, is the most important. So I hope that answers your question. I honor my ancestors. Um, I feel like wherever that lineage came from, that gave me my gifts, I have to thank them for that. But it also came from my soul energy that wasn't part of any human family too. So, um, I think the reason I bring that up is because, I had someone ask me once, like, what if what if you don't have that family lineage? Well, I don't see why you couldn't still have those gifts and tune into those things because you're a human who came from source. And if that energy has to find its way into manifestation somehow. And I don't really think there's just special families or special people that only they're the only ones who get access to that. I think we can all find our own way to do that and find our own way to express those things. It's just families and lineages. Um, they were fortunate enough to consciously keep it going, but it's still there for anybody to access.
I love that. I guess it makes it the experience that much more richer, right? When you have that ancestry attached to your experience, right? And so you can fall back on it and say, okay, this is perhaps where, certain aspects of my being comes from, or, in terms of just reflecting. But you're right in saying that, everybody is a reflection of all that is, or, the creator in terms of aligning themselves with that energy. So would you say it is in a way your initiative to connect with that energy and drive that emotion or that action forward to gain that momentum, let's say, to align with that energy? I suppose it's an awareness as well, right? To become aware of that connection and to make that the focus of your life, let's say. Would you
Yeah.
agree with that?
I think so. I think if I understand your your question correctly, um, because it's always felt like just this undeniable impulse to walk this path and to have these experiences and try to share with people about it. Um, I've tried to imagine doing other things, and I've tried to do regular jobs and live regular lives, and I always find myself staying with this no matter what. I can't get away with it. I can't get away from it. Um, I've only tried a couple of times in life to get away from it and to just live a regular human life. Um, and it pulled me back without exception, almost mercilessly. So I've accepted that this is the path I need to walk. Um, and I don't totally understand what it means. I mean, I do my offerings, and accept that a lot of it's just a mystery, and maybe I'll understand in time. Maybe I'm not ever meant to fully understand. Um, but I know this is what I got to do. It's like the hawk knows it has to fly. Sometimes it gets tired and it has to perch on a tree, but it can't get away from the sky.
Was it hard to choose this path, if you will?
It wasn't uh, so a little bit. So going back to that time period of like late teens, moving into 20s, I never thought it was a path. I mean, it didn't seem like something you could just do and be. Because my thought was like, so what do I do for work? How do I pay bills? Like, how do I exist with people in a regular setting? Um, because telling people that you do these things, um, certain crowds are not open and accepting to that at all. So, so right at that time frame, I was like, I don't know how to actually be this thing. But I started working in clinics. Eventually, I owned my own clinic. Um, so I would do all different. I did body work. I did massage for a while. I got into reflexology. I had infrared saunas and foot baths. And then I did readings and psychic readings and energy healings and Reiki and all these different forms of healing and energy work. Um, and then eventually it sort of all coalesced into one system. Um, there was a period in my 30s where it all got too overwhelming, and I just felt like I just want to set all this aside and just be a regular human, and I don't know what, like watch sports and talk about the weather and wonder about the government and like what are we going to do about these taxes, you know? um but I think I kind of went I mean I sunk into depression. I almost felt like I was going crazy. And the oversoul, the higher self in the form of guides and visions, was pretty relentless with me, like, rattling my cage and shaking up my mind and my emotions. Um, and I thought, I think I'm just gonna check out. I think I'm just gonna go live in the forest. I'd heard about aesthetics and these like different types of monks who would just like shun society and just go live in a cave. I thought I'd go live in the forest somewhere, but I decided I don't know how to exist in regular society, so I'm just gonna leave it. Um, and on my way to this forest, I got rid of all my possessions except what I could have in this vehicle, and then I narrowed it down to what I thought I could pack with me out into the forest. And I got into a really bad car accident, two in a row actually. So um, I got hit by a moose, a big bull moose, and then my vehicle spun into traffic on the opposite lane of the highway, and then I got hit in a head-on collision from and all highway speeds. Um, so lucky to be alive. I mean, I left my body for a while. I mean, I went into the spirit realm. I was passing away, passing over, um, and kind of given the choice to go or to come back. Um, but I was given some of the understanding that if I come back, I have to stay on my path. So, um, so I came back, and it was a long journey back, but and now I'm a lot more accepting of what I do. Um, and I'll talk about it with anybody. And it's okay if somebody doesn't get it or they don't want to hear it. I'm not here to push my ways on anybody, but I am here to share them with anybody who's open to experiencing it. Um, so I'm a lot more accepting of myself, and the path that I'm walking. Um, I don't know how that. It's still a process of understanding what I went through, um, and how it brought me to this place of just calm acceptance and just being okay with it, and not worried about fitting in, not worried about a normal life. Because what's the normal life anyway? There isn't one. Yeah. So it continues to be a journey, and it always will. But I'm a lot more excited to be on it, and a lot more I'm a more willing participant now. Whereas before, my higher self, my guides, my ancestors were really pushing me. Um, yeah, so I got yeah.
What a story! What a story! So, do you recall from the accident going into these other realms and engaging with I suppose, your higher self, your oversoul? What did that look like to you? Do you recall that interaction?
Oh yeah. So one way to describe that is like if you imagine the entire ocean, and if you were to take a dropper with like say it's a food coloring or an essential oil or something like that in the dropper, and when you drop that single drop into the ocean, and the drop just dissolves and merges into the ocean. That's what I was experiencing. I didn't experience like going down a white tunnel. I know a lot of people who have near-death experiences have that. Um, and I'm not here to say one is right or wrong, because I think there's an unlimited multitude of possibilities of where this can go. But for me, it was almost a sensation of lifting up out of my body and going up and up and up. Um, and the more aware I became of the world around me, like I could feel the breeze, even though my body wasn't up there. I could smell the smell of the trees. Like there was all these evergreen trees, and the smell was so intense. And the wind was moving the treetops. And then when I became aware of the stars, like I could just feel them all coming towards me like beams of light. And the sky was dancing, and the earth was like undulating and moving. And then all of a sudden, I just felt like I was dissolving into all of that, like merging with earth, merging with sky. Everything I knew to me and myself as an individual awareness was just dissolving, like that drop of water into the ocean. Um, and then I shifted into this space um, that seemed to just be more colors. And then I had this awareness of it felt like talking to myself, but it also felt like talking to some kind of source, of the nothingness and the everything. Um, so it was a conversation with everything and nothing. And that was when the awareness came of like, I got a vision of a direction of a place I needed to go, a specific direction I needed to go, a person I needed to meet. And then I was kind of given this choice of like, you can keep dissolving or you can go back. So I felt like the mission wasn't finished yet. And as soon as I made that choice, like there was just this like sensation of it was like falling from the sky, and all these swirling colors and energies retook the form of the sky and the stars and the trees and the forest, and I just dropped back into my body. And I took this big deep breath. I was slumped over in in the seat and sat up, and the vehicle was all crushed in around me, and the glass was all broken, and yeah, it was yeah, the vehicle was totaled.
Wow.
um, yeah.
So all of that happened during the accident. It was like you went off into this experience and then you came back and then you were able to then get treatment for the accident. So you went in a coma or anything like that. It was just that instance when that accident happened.
It was all that instant, and I don't know if I was out for 10 seconds or 10 minutes. Um, I don't know how long it all happened because it was so beyond time. But in Earth time, I don't think it was very long. Um, but I ended up kind of smashing what was left of the window out and exiting the vehicle myself, just because I knew I had been in two collisions. The first one I didn't see. Um, it was late at night. That's the only time I have ever had a collision with a moose. In talking to other people who've had that experience, they said you don't see it. Like their coat is so dark. It's just this dark brown, earthy color, and they're tall. Uh, One of the people who saw the accident, he said it was the biggest bull moose he'd ever seen in his life. He said the bottom of its shoulder was what hit the top corner of my vehicle. Apparently, it was bigger than my vehicle. I never did see it. I never saw anything. Just the sensation of being crushed. Um, yeah, and the collision with the other vehicle, I was conscious for all of that too, and that hurt.
Yeah. Were you rescued quickly and taken into hospital?
Yeah, it was pretty quick. Um, so I was just sitting on the side of the road when the ambulance got there, and I mean I was bleeding and I had a broken leg and some miss. I didn't break my back, like not to the point where it was anything was severed. Um, there was a few spots in the spine that got like twisted out of place, and a neck and a shoulder, and I had a lot of cuts and from the class. So I was just sitting on the side of the road, and then the ambulance came and the paramedics got out, and they for some reason thought that I was the passenger in the vehicle and that I'd been ejected. So I told them I was the driver, and they just patted me on the shoulder and they said, "Oh, this poor guy's in shock. He thinks he was driving that thing." And then one of them said, "I'm gonna go check on the body in the driver's side," because it was the driver's side that both the impacts happened on. So it was just, it was like a tin can that had been crushed. Um, so he went and looked and then came back and he said, "You were the driver?" And he said, he asked me a bunch of questions about like how how did I remain in it? How did I get out of it? Um, and then he had told me, we've pulled pieces of people out of wrecks that weren't this bad. So, so he said, you definitely had a guardian angel looking out for you. And I said, man, I had a whole team of them.
Yeah, I suppose you were dealing with that vision and the trauma of the accident as well, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow, that's something. And so how did things manifest after that?
So afterwards, I spent, I think, a month just like trying to deal with the trauma and the PTSD and the physical stuff. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't stay in one position for more than an hour. So I could stand up, I could kind of prop myself beside a bed and stand up for a little while until I got too sore. And even laying down, I mean, everything was so out of alignment. It just hurt too much to lay down. If I did fall asleep, I'd just wake up in cold sweats. Um, so I think it was at least a month of that. Um, and I wouldn't take any medication. Um, I got really clear guidance not to do that. And that was a test because, especially in the first 2, 3 weeks with all the pain, um, I just felt like, man, if there was a bottle of pain pills on the dresser beside the bed, I don't know how I would resist, especially not being able to sleep, not being able to feel comfortable. But I went through it, and And as I got feeling better and feeling bored, I'd exercise and I'd walk to, I broke my leg, so there was therapy involved in that. But and I did sweats and I meditated like crazy and I worked with crystals. I started doing more like dimensional travel work and just as much stuff as I could that I knew. Just use as many tools as was in my kit. And I think about 6 weeks or 2 months later, I'd gone to this specialist who worked with people who've been in these kind of physical traumatic situations. And he said, like, I've never seen anybody heal as quick as you. Like, the injuries that you had that have corrected. And in some cases, you can't even tell they were there. Like, I had cut like my entire face from the hairline down to my jaw on one side, and there was a cut from the inside of my eye going underneath my eye to my temple on the other side. I don't even have scars. Um, and the bone that was broke, I did get an X-ray at some point, and you can't see a crack, and I don't know, like everything. There's still little bits about like staying in alignment. Um, that get better and better every day, every month, every year. Maybe that'll be there forever, just as something that forces me to do self care. Um,
So you were doing self-healing most of the time. You didn't seek other people's help. Do you?
I did find a float chamber. I got Reiki from other Reiki masters. What else did I do? I mean, I would speak to spiritual people just to in a way that was philosophical, but that's really healing too, like that's like a form of psychological healing when you can share with people um, who are just sharing information. Sometimes it's not always hands-on healing work. It's not always energetic work. Sometimes you just have to have realizations through conversations. um, that's been really big for me because I've always been more, do the physical stuff, do the energy stuff, um, do the spiritual stuff, like do all that stuff. The talking is almost. I'm kind of realizing this right in this moment that that's probably the last form of healing that I connected with. So that's been interesting.
Wow, what a journey. Well, congratulations. You're still here with us and you look perfectly healthy to me, so that's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's truly a blessing, hey, to have that understanding of your body and know what you need to do in order to heal energetically, physically, emotionally. So that's awesome.
Yeah, it was a big exercise in trust, um, because like I say, didn't I was offered all kinds of medications and pharmaceuticals, um, and the doctor who um, was telling me like you need to take this stuff, and like he was stunned when I said no. Um, he's like, you're gonna need this. You're not gonna heal properly. You're not gonna be able to sleep. All these things of like, you absolutely must do this. And I said, well, I could lie to you and just say, okay, I'll take it, and then just not take it. But I felt like I'm just going to be upfront. I feel like I have tools and techniques on my own, and I know other people who can help me in their ways. Um, and he was one of the ones that said, like, I'm shocked at how you've healed so successfully and so quickly. And I told him, I was like, oh yeah, I meditate with crystals and I use these sound singing bowls and I can feel the bones realign and sometimes I talk to people in the spirit world and he's like, well, whatever you're doing, it's working.
Good. Well, at least he was open to it, right? Open to the potential of that happening. Sometimes doctors can be so, ingrained in their 3D world and the matrix practices. They don't necessarily open their mind to these other potentials. So that's awesome.
Yeah,
All
definitely.
right, let's shift gears a bit. Let's talk about your personal life a little bit, if you would like to share, and how you have aligned with another being that we both know. And my viewers will perhaps be familiar with this person who you call a partner in your life. So, yeah, I'd love to hear about how you met Shakina Grace, who is your partner, and how that came about, and you and her in this divine relationship together, and the beauty that you're creating on Mystic Mountain.
Hmm. Well, that is a incredible and wonderful and ever evolving story. So after the accident, um, I was guided to go to a very specific city in a very specific part of the prairies that I was utterly resistant to. I felt like uh, that feels like going backwards. I don't want to go to the prairies. I don't want to go to a city. Um, but there's somebody there I'm supposed to meet. I don't know why, but I guess I'll go. So I realized, after almost being killed by a moose, um, with with spirit and the universe being so clear that I have to take this certain path, I thought, I'm going to listen. I don't like what they're telling me, but I'm going to listen. So I headed out to Saskatoon, and right at the beginning of the journey, there was a female moose out on the prairies, and she was standing right on the highway. There was no other vehicles on the highway. Now this was day. This is early in the morning. My accident was late at night with the bull moose. Um, so early in the morning, gorgeous pink sunrise, and this moose is standing right in the middle of the road, and I had all kinds of time to just slowly drive up to where there was no risk of accident to either of us. So I stopped the vehicle, I turned it off, I got out, and I said, "What are you trying to tell me right now?" Because I had an interaction with one of you very recently, and it was telling me you are not to go that way. So, what's your message? And she got off the road and walked through this little field along behind me, and then just went into the middle of a marsh. Just stood in the marsh. And it was really clear that she was like saying, proceed. This is the way.
Right.
So I got out to Saskatoon. Um, I was still doing some healing work. Um, and online, I found a description of this practitioner, and it was the most unique thing. I'd never seen a description of someone's healing work like that before. Just the depth that she described of how she works, and like combining all these techniques and using Ayurveda, and I didn't completely understand what she did, but I just felt like whatever this is, I think this is good while I'm on this completion of this healing. Um, so I got to book with her. It was all over the phone. Um, she picked a time and told me to come in. So I went to her studio, and yeah, she opened the door, and it was just this radiant light. And I can't remember. Like, I filled out form after form after form. She had like so much thorough form work, and it was like pages of like this deep psychology. Um, it wasn't just like, oh, where is your pain? And have you ever had massage before? Like it was like so in depth of your history and your philosophy, and um, it was amazing. And then after that, I mean, we talked so much about like our own individual paths. We'd been on such a parallel path of both getting into the healing industry at the same time, both studying similar things at the same time. We both opened up our own clinics at the same time. We had this crazy parallel lifetime, and and then I don't know how it all progressed from like things progressed really fast. Honestly, there was it all happened real fast. There was just this full remembrance of like we've done this before. There was so much familiarity. It wasn't so much as like getting to know each other as it was just remembering each other. Um, yeah, maybe the two of us should do an interview together with you one time
That would be
to
awesome.
fill in some of the gaps because there's a lot of funny parts to our story, but I feel like I want to honor her ability to respond to some of
Sure, yeah,
it.
absolutely. Well, I have talked to Shakina as well about, how you guys met. So I have a little idea about your background and how you guys came together. I wanted to hear your perspective of it as well. But yeah, for sure, we'll do one where the two of you get to engage and sort of see that, that common ground and how you guys met. So that would be beautiful. Yeah.
I mean, we met on February 14th. It was a Valentine's Day. I can't remember the first date. The first time we spent time together was this amazing it was like a gypsy dance performance with all these Spanish tapas. It was just this really unique cultural experience. There was a lot of funny stuff. Yeah. Um, for me, I felt like I knew instantly. I was like, oh yeah, I know this person, and I know where we're supposed to go. Um, yeah. So for me, it was pretty instantaneous.
Awesome. And then you guys moved to BC and you now
Yeah.
have a you
So
now have a beautiful property that you offer up services to and you manage together.
hmm. So we got Mystic Mountain, and that's in Caslow, BC, right on Kootenay Lake. We're halfway up the side of a mountain. We've got nice crown forest behind us. There's two spring-fed creeks that run through either side of our property. So a beautiful forest, beautiful clean drinking water, incredible mountain air. We get the sunrise that comes up across the lake over the next mountain range. And we do all of our services there, and they're ever evolving. Um, so, we do the body work, we do meditation. She teaches dance and yoga, and all these incredible new bodily healing systems that involve like intuition and journey work. And then I do the bowls and the sound and the readings. So we offer all of our things there, but it's just this incredible place on earth where the energy is always just so supported and flowing. I've been doing this work for 25 years. I've done it in cities, in small towns, in yoga studios, in community centers. I've gone to farmhouses. I have farm families that will have me come to their house and work on their family there. I think I've done this in almost every set and setting you could do it in. So to be able to have this Mystic Mountain temple, it's like the work is so supported there. We're so energized as practitioners to have the blessing to be in a space like that and to take all that energy into our beings. So we can be so in integrity and so grounded and so inspired and energized to do our work. And then when the people come to for whatever experience they're going to have, it's not just us doing that work either. You have the spirit of the earth, and the spirit of the sky, and the energy of all these trees, and the elemental realm, and and the sky. It's just such a magical place. I'd love to take you on like a video journey through there. I could walk through some spaces with the phone on the camera sometime.
Wow, it sounds heavenly. It really does. And, just looking at the pictures on the website and hearing stories from both you and Shakina, it sounds like such an idyllic place to be living and working from. So, congratulations on achieving that in your life. Not many people are able to do that and, find a partner to be able to combine that experience with. So, it's really beautiful that the two of you came together in this divine way and have accomplished that. So it's awesome. So I suppose, what would your guidance be in terms of just say somebody that's wanting to know how to navigate this world, if you will, and align with a divine partner such as yourself and Shakina?
Well, definitely, the first thing that jumps into mind is you have to work on yourself. Um, and partly it's the knowledge that knowing that you need to, and the humility to know that everybody does. Uh, Like it's a work that never ends, and you get unlimited benefit from it. So there's no one should ever feel like shame to say like I need this healed, or I need to focus on this, or I need to improve this. Like we all always need to do that. It's a never ending journey. So by first admitting and accepting and being grateful for the opportunity that you get to try to better yourself, and try to look at ways that you could improve or that you could release. Recognize your strengths and how can you embrace them and make them even stronger. So it's like a self-healing path, a self-betterment path, and you don't approach it like it's a burden. You approach it like it's an incredible opportunity to grow and to learn and to experience. And when you're doing that, you'll bump into somebody else that's doing that too. Um, and it, for me anyway, it will come when you are not expecting it, not looking for it, and think you don't even want it at the time. Yeah.
Well, that sort of segues into what this show is going to be all about. It's that masculine energy. It's that um, energy of foundation, of strength, of all of those masculine traits like courage and things like that, right? And so, to me, in a way, the way that the two of you interact and what I'm getting to understand is that you both support each other and you support her with that masculine energy and she feels supported in order for her to expand and for her to have that ability to be who she truly is, which is not in a way available to many women in this world, to have that support of the divine masculine for them to be able to emerge and to flower in a way, to experience that divine feminine aspect of themselves. So it's a beautiful balance between the two of you. So do you see that happening in your life and that you both support each other?
Absolutely. Oh, 100%. She's oh, I almost used the word cheerleader, and I don't think she'd appreciate that word. um, it's like she's such a good motivator, um, not just as a partner, but there's moments where she can be the teacher. There's moments where she can feel safe being the student, and we both can give that to each other, of knowing in moments where one person is feeling stronger. they can help elevate the other person, not push them down or make them feel bad or less. You try to elevate each other, and to shine for each other. Because as humans, there's days we just wake up and we feel down about stuff. We'll be like, this isn't working, or this is a part of me that isn't being accepted, or I just had this issue. So to have somebody remind you of what's the good in that, what's the lesson in that, like what is the strength that you have that you're not remembering in this moment. So so in that kind of partnership, like you keep weaving to support one another. um and it is a dance, because it shouldn't be, one person having to carry the other person all the time. um it needs to work both ways, because there'll be different moments when it's appropriate for either or the other. You know. Um, Sorry, I got on a bit of a tangent there.
No, no, no. It's absolutely to the point. No, no, you answered it perfectly, and that's exactly what I was trying to get at. It's like, how do you find that balance in doing that, so that either you don't feel left out or she doesn't feel left out. So yeah, there is that balance, right? And you bring out the best in each other, which is really, really important. In the work, especially in the work that you do, and for you to feel fulfilled, on every level. And since you both are on that spiritual journey, it's very unique and very, very different for everybody. And so, as you experience it on a daily basis. Things are happening on so many different levels in a very expanded level. And so it totally makes sense that the two of you are able to jive with those changes as they come about. So that's really beautiful. So coming from this pure perspective that you have painted for us, Robert, and it's really beautiful, just looking back on everything that we've just talked about. How do you, in a way, I'm trying to word this correctly, how do you use that, if you will, in the backdrop of what's happening in this world, whether you want to take it back 20 years or 2000 years? There's definitely a distortion and a distorted world that we live in. That is a total polarity of that world that you have created for yourself. So I'm trying to bring that into coherence, if you will, to understand how we can live in this distorted world and how we can bring ourselves into that alignment, if you will, with the Creator, to live a beautiful life like yourself and Shekina, in a way that's completely aligned to our own higher self, our own oversoul, in spite of living in this distorted reality that we are now become accustomed to. You know what I mean?
I think I understand. I feel like I wanna say, that there'll be times, that are hard for all of us, you know, regardless of being in the most perfect partnership or being in the most lonely state of individuality. I mean, as humans, we have like a desire for everything to feel perfect and to always feel inspired and for everything to feel good and right and in alignment. Um, so we want to avoid the bad feelings. And the bad feelings, sure, yeah, they're tough. They're not comfortable. They don't feel good. We can feel stuck. We can feel sad. We can feel all the things. But in a way, going through those things is what allows us to recognize when we're experiencing the other thing. Um, and as long as we're in a duality sort of world, um, that's going to be the navigation that takes place. Like there's highs and lows, there's happy and sad, there's days when everything's moving and flowing, and days when everything's heavy and stuck. And I think as long as we're in this duality world and this polarity material manifestation, I think everybody who's in it has to navigate that. Like, I don't know if anybody truly gets to only experience the good and the fun. I think the way you move beyond duality is to use the word that you use, balance. So when things are fantastic, you don't get too out of your head about it. You maintain a state of humility, maintain a state of groundedness. That way, when things shift and we're in the harder phases, it's not such a shock to your system, to your heart, to your spirit, and to your mind. You're just kind of shifting. It's like the weather, you know, the sunny days come and the rain days come, but we need that. You know, there's nourishment in that, just like the rain nourishes the land and the plants and the animals. Those harder days are what gives us strength because we had to learn something about ourselves, or we had to overcome an obstacle, or we had to find a solution, or we had to have like a really tough conversation, maybe even an argument with someone, but that gave us clarity. And the clarity can be an infinite number of things, whether it's like our boundaries, where do we move forward, what action do we take, what mental thing do we realize. Um, but I think that's how we unify the light and the dark, and the polarities is by recognizing that they both serve purpose, and that they all serve that purpose, and they all have that importance. Um, in one of the family farmyards, they had this picture with these words, and it's been done in different ways. But in that one, it was like, you know, it was a beautiful day, and I asked the farmer why wasn't he smiling, and he was like, well, it's, you know, it's a nice day, but you know, bad weather can come. And then bad weather came, and I asked the farmer, like, why aren't you angry? And he said, well, you know, it's bad weather now, but eventually it'll be good weather again. And it went on and on with all these situations of the good situations, and he didn't get too crazy about it, and the bad situations, and he didn't get too down about it. That little poster or painting or whatever it was, I always remember that, seeing that as a kid. Um, because sometimes Shakina will say that, like, she'll say, you never get too high or too low. Not to say I don't experience happiness and sadness, but I don't get too pulled apart by it. And I think that's, for me anyway, that was a good way of being, of just trying to maintain balance, knowing that the pendulum is always going to swing, and knowing that there's always something in any of those situations that's gonna help me evolve or help me grow or help me have a realization. Sure, I prefer the easy, sunny ones, but I probably get a lot more from the tough ones, you know?
Well, it's the growth, right, that takes place when you go through those hardships. And once you come out of it, you then have the opportunity to reflect on why and how that happened and how you've changed and grown from that experience. So,
Yeah. So I think, so I think people on their path and like, how do I become more spiritual? Or how do I embrace my gifts more? Or how do I become more balanced and less polarized? Um, the first thing is not to be hard on yourself, because it's so easy for us. Like, most people are their own worst critic. So it's so easy to get down on ourselves when something goes wrong. So just remember there's always going to be that point. But that point is just trying to push you to go into something that's what you need.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, what
Yes.
would be your advice to perhaps somebody that's just, just becoming a man? Let's say, they're a teenager and just, getting into that manhood, if you will. or even to somebody that's already a fully grown individual. And what would be your advice to them in not just from the spiritual perspective, but just in the manner of living a balanced life, within this reality that we live in, and all of the hardships that are very real in this reality from the divine masculine perspective.
I think action is important. Action is so huge with masculine energy. Um, and I'll say masculine energy because there's females who have dominant masculine energy too. Um, but if we're talking about things on a purely energetic basis, the feminine energy tends to be a receptive energy, and the masculine is more active, more action oriented. So to feed and to embrace and to feed that energy properly, you need action and activity in your life. Um, I don't think it has to be specific. I think it has to be the proper thing for each individual. So for some people, it's going to be like they want to play sports. For other people, maybe they go camping in the woods. Maybe they're a survivalist. But that action and activity and doing is so important to feed the masculine energy and to stoke the masculine fire. Um, because men in general need to feel like they're being productive, whether they're producing a physical thing or they're providing for a family or they were protecting their tribe, whatever the case may be, most men need to feel like I've been productive in some way. Um, and not everybody can get that from their job. Not everybody necessarily feels that from their family. So you need to take action in some way. Like for me, as a personal example, right now, in the Kootenays, it's our winter. We get tons of snow. It's colder there. Not nearly as cold as the prairies. If there's any prairie people listening to this, it's colder on the prairies than it is in the British Columbian mountains, but it's still cold. So, I'm chopping and stacking wood almost every day, and the wood shed and the wood pile isn't that close to the house, so I also have to bundle it and carry it into the house. Um, and I keep wondering, like, when am I going to get annoyed with this? But I don't because it just gives me this sense of like I'm taking action, I'm being productive, and I accomplish a goal. No matter how small that might seem, um, it's pretty big for people in the mountains that your house is heated by wood heat. It's not a trivial thing, but it's a simple thing. That doesn't take me 8 hours to do. That's a short little part of my day. But I get active, I get fresh air, and I did something. And just like that, I can say that I've achieved something. So every male and every person with masculine energy needs to have that. I would even argue that the most effeminate feminines, the most effeminate females, if you want to feed your masculine energy too, that's a fantastic way to do it. Take an action, do an activity, because it feeds that energy. I think men right now need that so much because our society is becoming like digitized and sedentary. A lot of the jobs aren't physical anymore. Um, and the economy is really bad right now. There's a lot of people who are struggling to find work. People who do have work don't have enough of it. So it's easy to get depressed. It's easy to get down about things. So just by having an activity that you can do and achieve, no matter how simple it is, like it feeds your soul. It feeds the masculine part of you so much. So, whether you're a teenage kid saying like, who am I? What am I going to do with my life? I don't know what kind of adult I'm going to be. You don't have to figure that out right now, but you should go ride your bike around the block, or go shoot some hoops, play some basketball, be active. It doesn't have to be sports. I played a ton of sports as a kid. I was really lucky that way, fortunate. Um, I went to a little elementary and junior high school. So my junior high was in a town that had no services. We didn't even have a gas station. So the kids weren't allowed to leave school grounds at lunch hour or breaks. So all we did was play sports. We just played sports. And if we weren't playing like basketball or soccer, we were playing tag. I mean, we were always active. So that was a real blessing for myself and kids in that situation. But you know, with the video games, with the computer games, yeah, it could be mentally stimulating, but it's not the type of activity that you're taking movement and action in the physical world. So I'm really speaking about the physical world. Um, I think men and boys really need that type of physical activity in some form. You know, the city guys, most of them are pretty good about going to the gym. Gyms are pretty big in the cities, but you got to find something. Everybody's got to find something. You know, walk a dog, go to an animal shelter and pet a cat. You know, anything. Go help a little old lady carry her groceries. You know, um, there's I won't just keep listing activities here, but
But I
you
think
know
that's
the
great. That's awesome. That's great guidance. So where would you think is the injury, if you will, that's been inflicted upon the divine masculine energy in a way that's, and I'm not pointing fingers or putting the masculine in down in any way, but I just feel that it has caused damage to the divine masculine energy over a period of time, whether it's societal or just the way things have unfolded, if you will, whether it's suppression of the women or whoever took those decisions, made the rules, made the laws, that sort of thing. I feel that the masculine has taken a hit on many of these levels. And so, in a way, it has directed society, directed the understanding of how the male has to be or how the female has to be. And so, to me, in a way, that's an injury, an imbalance to the divine feminine and the divine masculine. So, how do you see that healing from your perspective?
well to summarize the whole thing, it's the hardening of the heart. I mean, that's whether you go way back in time to like the Roman era and then into medieval Europe and then the Viking Age, like all these ages of like war and pillage and plunder, and men moved beyond being the protectors to being like soldiers, um, war makers, plunderers, conquerors. And you can't conquer people if your heart is open and your heart is pure and you're connected to that because it's compassion. You know, the heart is compassion. And if you're battling another group of men and you're all trying to kill each other, the compassionate ones are the first ones to die. So, purely from a survival perspective, the hardening of the heart in order to commit war, to make war, and to battle. And, and like it or not, there's been at least 2,500 years of human history where we've been in an absolute dark age in terms of societies attacking and taking and conquering and destroying each other, and it's universal. You can go to any country, any continent, any group, and they were all doing it to each other. You know, Native American tribes did it. The monarchy states in Europe did it to each other. The ancient Indian, well, I don't know, they're not called provinces, but every kingdom, China, the Mongols conquered more of the known world and murdered more people in such a tiny amount of time than anybody else. The British colonizing people. I'll try not to do too big a history lesson, but it is important to realize that right now we're at the culmination of over 2,000 years of the one who survives is the meanest one, who has closed their heart down the most and is willing to take the most without any consideration for who gets hurt. So, for thousands of years and hundreds of generations, the only men that mattered and the only men who could succeed in this evolution and in this time period were those ones. The not just the toughest, not just the strongest, but the ones who could close their heart down the most. Um, because we can find instances of benevolent rulers, but they tended to take care of the societies that they were responsible for. The ones that wanted to expand and to conquer another nation, conquer another people, like they were the ones that had to close everything down and not care about who was being hurt. So, this isn't an excuse. This isn't to say, well, the men who are narrow minded and selfish and greedy, they can't help it. It's not to excuse that behavior. It's just to understand the progression of what brought us here. Because we need to know what's behind us. We need to understand our past. And we need to heal those instances in order to move forward successfully and to create the kind of future that we want. So that's a lot of the problem I see with the past of males and masculine. Now, if we jump forward to the present time, the most desirable man, little girls are taught, you want to pick a guy who has a big house and a whole bunch of cars and owns all these things and runs all these businesses. Young women aren't told you should find the guy who treats you wonderfully, who makes you feel safe enough to grow and to be yourself and to shine in your femininity. They're told, find the most successful guy. And then what the boys are led to understand, well, if you want to be successful, you've got to step on people. You have to understand that it's a dogfight to get to the top. And the only ones who get to the top are the ones who are willing to fight and stab and I won't use words like kill and destroy, but I mean, symbolically, they're there. But if you want to succeed, that's what you have to do. You have to be willing to put aside your own needs, stuff down your feelings, because men have been told for so many generations, not only that their feelings don't matter, but that you're not even supposed to have them. So there's just this like buildup of genetic material in our genes, in our cells. We have all this memory of all these civilizations that have been fighting, and in our soul, in our past lives, we have all these memories of experiencing all those things. So now we're at this like coalescent point where we're so conscious of all this, and suddenly we're aware. And with consciousness and awareness, now we can have a reflection, and we can reflect back and understand what's been going on, what does it mean for us right now, and how do we move forward. So understanding is the first thing, because I think I think it's really important. The corrupted masculine isn't where most men want to be. So just like um, a woman wouldn't want a man to oppress them in whatever way that oppression takes shape. It's hard for a man to be told, like, you are the evil patriarchy. You are the reason all this horrible stuff exists. That's abuse on both sides. So we don't want the man to oppress the woman, but the woman is also causing damage by projecting shame and guilt onto the man. So we need to truly try to uplift each other um, by creating space for each other's strengths to shine and to be supported. I know that's generalized, but there's so many forms that that can take. You know, like as a man, if your partner, if your lady wants to be a breadwinner, you know, their whole being is saying like that's shameful. Like I can't I can't not be the one who supports and provides. Um, and that can manifest a million different ways. Maybe they say, well, no, you have to stay home and we're gonna have kids and you're gonna raise those kids because I have to go to work. So you can't follow your dreams or try to have a career because that's just the way things are. So, we're trying to break out of these things. So the first step is calm awareness because as soon as we start pointing fingers at each other, then it breaks down the ability to just sink into respect for one another. Because everybody's hurting in this. Um, Not just the male and female, like this is between different races, it's between different social hierarchies.
For saying that we were talking about the divine masculine and how we can possibly heal the energy of the divine masculine and the divine feminine in a balanced way in terms of how we relate to society and just across the board, like you said, and it's very true. People are hurting on so many different levels, whether it's male, female, whether it's societal, whether it's religious, whether it's spiritual, whether it's on the money front. And you're so right in what you said, about our upbringing and how it's just so embedded in our DNA and how we relate to the opposite sex. So yeah, and I think your advice is just so beautiful. It speaks to the heart. It speaks to how we relate in terms of integrity and respect, which is not really taught in schools nowadays. You're essentially taught the opposite. Like you said, you're taught to chase after wealth. You're taught to chase after that competition. And so all of that breeds that energy of, like you said, closing your heart and going in that opposite direction, as opposed to anchoring that creator energy, that purity in your heart and leading from that direction. So yeah, beautiful, beautiful advice. So keep going if you want to continue where we left off.
Sure. So I think it was just about like the masculine recognizing like what has brought us to this point. Like, what got us here, and now how do we proceed forward? So the way forward is the reopening of the heart center and knowing that it's okay. And this is starting to happen now. There's starting to be men's circles and men's groups, and men are starting to get together to just share. And they're talking about the things that are troubling for them. Um, and this is really special. It's really important because they never got to do that before either. Like a generation ago, they'd meet at the bar to drink and yell at the TV at the football game. And the generation before that, maybe they just met at the bowling alley to smoke cigars and get in fights with each other. So we've finally reached this age of maturity and also feeling safe enough for people to come together and share in a vulnerable way. And it's not to hold up a badge, like, look at my trauma's worse than your trauma. Like, it's not, it shouldn't be about that. Like, what it really should be about is understanding that we're all vulnerable and we've all hurt, but together we can provide space for healing, and through that healing, then comes more strength. Because the men today are really starting to shift from what we've seen for thousands of years. The men today, they don't want to beat their children when they're being bad. They want to hear about what they have to say, and they want to consider different ways to bring them up. And they don't want to work jobs that are exploitative and destructive and like ruining the environment. They want to do things that are more creational and creative and long lasting. So the shift is definitely happening. I think part of it is all of us recognizing that men do want to shift and change, and then acknowledging that they're starting to. They're definitely starting to. There's a balance point of being a heart-centered protector, because men still need to try to be the protectors in society to keep the children safe, to provide emotional and mental and even physical security for the women. So we still need to be warriors, but we're learning how to be compassionate warriors, to use divine force. And I know force is a word that can get reactions from people. So I don't mean force in terms of forcing someone to follow your way or your bidding. I mean action. When I say force, I mean using masculine energy in a divinely guided action. So by men being active in whatever way is right for them, whether they exercise, they jog, they work out, they play sports, they swim, they build an airplane and fly, like whatever action you're doing, just go chop some firewood. Whatever action you need to take that gives you a sense of purpose, that isn't causing destruction, that isn't taking something from somebody else. It's like divine force. It's action in a divinely guided way. So when we're all able to do these things, then we understand how to express the masculine energy. I mean, it comes back to right action, heart guided action. Because you gotta have a little bit of compassion for this generation of men, because we're told you still gotta be strong, you still gotta protect, you still gotta get out and work in the world, but you also need to learn how to be compassionate. And all that oppression that has happened for thousands of years, now we're putting it on you guys right now. You're the ones that are being expected to fix all of this. And it's overwhelming, to feel like, oh, what can I do to heal all of those wrongs and all of those ways of being, and not just say sorry, but to fix it all. Like it's a big energy. Um, so I think the guys and the men and the boys today are probably some of the best warriors that have ever existed. They're coming back. They've lived past lives as incredible warriors in that brutal wartime. because they have the strength to make change now.
And they're coming in with that vision, with that evolved vision, right? Yeah, you hear of these star seeds, these indigo children, these aurora kids who are already coming in wide awake, right? And they are aware of everything that's going on. So yeah, they've seen the past and they now have a mission to correct it. So that's awesome. You've just tied it all in a nice little bow. It's beautiful. What would you say to folks that are suffering, Robert, in a way that is attached to perhaps alcoholism or drug abuse? And this again from the masculine perspective, like how can people overcome those addictions and relate or align themselves back into that pure energy of alignment and get back on track, let's say?
Well, that's big, because on one hand, no one should feel like they got to do it alone. Um, but on the other hand, it is absolutely the individual that has to make that decision. And they're ultimately the one who is deciding it. So the individual has to recognize that they have infinite power to overcome these problems. I don't believe they're powerless and have to surrender to it. I believe that they have incredible power to overcome it. So they have to make that decision on their own, fully on their own. But then find support networks, find groups that can help. And it's not a one size fits all. You know, they got to find the ones that work the best for them. Because some situations it's sitting in a circle and talking. In other situations, it might look like something more active, more that builds up a sweat. I mean, ideally, you'd use all those tools because that's you have to work on the body. You got to sweat out through the physical body and create new pathways. Um, the mind, there's so many hungry ghosts, so many demons in the mind that need to be cleared out, and the spiritual murkiness and muddiness and cords and the hauntings that take place in that spiritual level. And of course, the heart. And again, there's going to be different ways. Some of them need to connect to groups of men. Some of them might have to do it with their partner. For other ones, it's their families. But they need to come back into the heart, into compassion, into self-acceptance, and then do things that project from the heart. Because when you're doing good, you can realize that you're making progress and you're making the world a better place, then it's easier to stay in that energy and stay on that level of it. So that's not an easy thing, you know. I got a lot of brothers that have passed due to those problems. Some that are still stuck in it, and some glorious ones that have been able to come out of it. So there's no one size fits all. Um, and I don't think it's easy for anybody. Um, but you know, it's the individual power and choice, and then healing through community. Um, those
And
are
it's
really
that
general ways.
perseverance, right? Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
to persevere.
Yeah.
That action, you know, taking the action, the divine guided masculine action.
Mm. Thank you. That's beautiful advice. Yeah, it's a really big one, like you said, you know. And for me personally too, I have a family that have struggled, and just through my work in working with the male energy that comes to my door for healing, I have encountered that, you know, there is that struggle, whether it's coming from you know, getting involved with the wrong medication or becoming hooked onto it and not able to, you know, get back on track and having that dependence on medication, or whether it's just distortion in terms of religion is a big factor as well. You know, having that belief system that's so ingrained in your mind that you know you tend to trust that with all your heart, and then you encounter something that's vastly different, and you see the truth in that, but then you're afraid of taking that path and embracing it completely, knowing that you are leaving all of that behind, whether it's your family or your past behind, and just focusing on that spiritual reality that you have encountered and in your heart is connected, is true. But it's just that realization, and that having to have the strength to move on from that path. It's a very big step for people to take. So I have encountered that, and yeah, your advice is truly beautiful. It's like you said, coming back to that action, taking those small steps and making it like a daily practice almost, right, for yourself. And that will just become a progression of making it back onto the right path.
Because it absolutely is a progression. Everybody needs to understand that it's one step, two step, three step, four. It's always a progression for everybody, no matter where we're at in our journey. So don't ever get caught in comparing. Don't get caught in hierarchies, because no matter where anybody is, they're still progressing on their path. Yeah, it never ends, and it shouldn't.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Was there anything you wanted to say, Robert, in closing? And perhaps something that we didn't touch on that's really close to your heart?
One thing I felt like I wanted to add when we were speaking of this new generation of men, you perfectly brought up the new souls, the indigo kids, the star kids, the crystal kids, all these new ones coming in. But I want to give a little shout out to the pathfinders and the way showers and the ones that have come a little before that. Because if you imagine like a oil field construction crew, and they're rough and they're gruff, some of them have those addiction problems that we were just speaking of. The hearts are closed, and one of them goes to like throw some trash on their work site, but one of them says, "Hold on," and they pick that up and they throw it away, and they say, "You can't do that, you got to put that away." They're doing something. They're doing a big thing. I can think of a group of hunters I know, and as soon as you say that to certain people, like they're like horrible people. Oh, these, but these some of these guys are getting conscious about, like, you only take what you're gonna eat, what you're gonna use, what you're gonna harvest, and you got to do it responsibly. There's conservation coming back, and those guys are speaking up against people who would just go out there and just shoot everything. So they deserve their props. I just wanna send some love to those guys, because that's a harder situation to step up and to speak out than being in a circle where everybody is that way already. So those are some good warriors there.
Absolutely. Thank you for saying that. Yeah, it's really hard to come from that heart-centered space, right? And speak your truth, and be ready to receive the barbs, if you will, that'll come at you, and try to bring you down or to put you down. And I'm sure there's hundreds of arguments against you, and why you shouldn't be doing that, right? In today's world, there's tons of that happening. So yeah, absolutely. I tip my hat to those folks as well for creating that path, the right path, the righteous path, right? So yeah, that's beautiful.
I just want to say this has been an incredible experience. I've never done something like this before. This is my first time. You're a wonderful interviewer. You very insightful questions. I love the way you summarize the things that I say, and you just kept it going so smoothly. I felt like I never felt like I had to hold back. I feel like there's so many more stories I want to tell now that I'm with you and getting to experience this. So if you ever want to have me back,
absolutely, absolutely, we will do this again. I thoroughly enjoyed this as well. But before we go, I just want to ask you to just talk a little bit about your what you're doing right now. I know you've traveled away from home. You're on this road trip. So if you want to just talk about that, and what it is you're doing here in Vancouver and how people can reach you, just all that good stuff. So yeah, just talk a little bit about your work.
Great. So I do sessions and I do group work. So in my sessions, I'll either do it with an individual or a pair, and the pair can be a married couple, siblings, parent and child, neighbors, friends, whatever the case may be. So I do these one-on-one sessions. I try to keep them about 90 minutes, about an hour and a half. I set up the bowls. So it's a combination of like energy healing and also the reading work. So the first portion, I use the frequencies and I use different healing modalities that I use to send people whatever they need, whether it's the mind, emotional stuff, spiritual things, physical stuff. Some people come with physical issues. And then at the end, because I get visions throughout the whole thing, I might get past lives, I might get stuff about the aura, ancestor guides can come in, animal guides will come in with insights about what people are going through in the present moment and ways that they can proceed forward. So I get a lot of information that I share. So it's kind of a combination of healing and reading and informational. I also do that in group settings. So I'll set up my bowls, I'll get everybody seated. I like to have them lying down, personally. Everybody lies down in a circle, and then at the end, I'll share a reading with everybody in the circle. It's not as in-depth as like an individual session, but it's still pertinent and valuable information. And in the group setting, it can be kind of neat to see like how many different things come up for all the different people. So the group's a little more of an affordable experience. If people just want to kind of dip their toe in or just have the experience. Sound baths have taken off in the last, I don't know, 4 years. Like, they're everywhere now, and they're every kind of instrument. Like, people are using guitars, drums and flutes and chimes and crystal bowls and like any kind of instrument you can imagine. People are doing sound baths with them now. So I think that's great, because the intentional space when you sink into sound and vibration is phenomenal to experience. So I love that there's all these different ways to experience it. And now it's becoming, I don't want to use the word mainstream, but it's becoming something that so many people are aware of now that I don't have to explain it as much. So it's like, come have a sound bath. Sound bath, good. Everybody knows what that is now. But we're going to do some dimensional work. I'm going to look at your light body. We're going to weave through the dimensional layers. Your energy field will open up like a tapestry of light. And through that light and that motion and that vibration, it'll take forms and shapes and images. And then I share those images and the meanings of them with everybody who experienced that. So it tends to be really wonderful. I get incredible responses and reviews and feedback. I've done this all across Western Canada, BC, Alberta, Saskatchewan, and every kind of group you can imagine, like farmers and oil patch workers. I've done this for the psychedelic, what are they called? It's like they take people on psychedelic journeys, but they're psychologists. Like ayahuasca? No, it's, well, that too, okay. I've got to share with some of them too. But like a psychedelic therapy. Okay. So people are actually training in doing this, like, it's like psychology. But they do it. Anyway, a group of them had a retreat. I did it for them. So I guess the moral of my story is I've done this for all walks of life, all types of people, um, and it's always awesome. And so I guess the unique thing that I offer is the weaving of the tapestry of light and sharing the information with the group as it flows through. So I've got 3 group dates here in Vancouver. On Friday, I'm in White Rock. On Sunday, I'm in Olympic Village. That's a private one for a private group, so that won't be open to the public. There's another one on Tuesday in a community called Carisdale. And there might be a few locations. I'm looking at a place in Burnaby, and I've got a space rented in downtown by Yaletown that I can do small groups in and individual sessions. So people can come see me right in downtown Vancouver for the next 4 days, and then I'll be popping around in all kinds of different locations for a few more days after that, and then back to Caslow, back to the Kootenays, and I travel a lot for this work, so this is my first time in Vancouver. This whole place is new to me. I spent 2 whole days just touring the city in wonder and amazement, and so I'm looking forward to it. So I'm brand new. I don't have any connections. Raquel, you're one of my only people I knew coming here. So I'm just planting some seeds.
Yeah, no, I think it's beautiful. I think what you're doing is just awesome. It's really beautiful. And I wish I could explore it with you. But I think what we'll do is, and hopefully we can capture some of your sound. We'll try and experiment with that after we're done with this recording, just to give folks a flavor of, what your bowls sound like. So you're calling it sound bath meditation and intuitive light body readings, correct?
I like to call it a sound immersion.
Immersion, okay.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I've got a sound engineer kind of guy I'm going to be working with in the beginning of February. So he will be able to help me record the bowls frequencies, and then I'll put them on the website, and maybe I can even share them with you, because I know like iPad and telephone speakers just don't pick up all the tones and the frequencies and the depth. So
yeah, I think we tried it on Zoom and it didn't really work. So, but now that we are in person, perhaps we could record something just a little bit and just give folks a flavor of what it might sound like.
Great.
Thank you so much, Robert. That was beautiful. I love this conversation on so many levels, and I will definitely invite you back again for part 2 or even more than that. How can people connect with you or contact you? I know I can put that in the description as well, but it would help for you to say it.
My cell phone is 306-280-8955. I can receive text and phone calls, voice messages. Also, Mystic Mountain BC at yahoo.com is my email. You can also find us on Facebook, Mystic Mountain Nature Retreat. That I don't get to quite as much. Phone, text, and the Yahoo email are the most direct ways to get in touch with me. And I will be creating a new Facebook page, so even if somebody wants to send me a text or an email and tell me where you're at on Facebook and those other ones, Instagram, I'll send you requests, because that's coming down the pipe here.
Awesome. And I would highly recommend coming and getting a flavor of Robert and his work, and just his presence. It's truly a beautiful experience. So I would encourage you to indulge and to get in touch with Robert, and even go to Mystic Mountain. There's a beautiful property that they manage up in Caslow. So, take the trip out there and go and explore that heavenly, beautiful place. I know that's in the future for me as well. So I'm looking forward to connecting with these two folks up in Caslow. So thank you, Robert, for this beautiful interaction. I'm so grateful. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. And I will see you next time. Namaste.